since you have known this gentleman for, I don't know,
Since we were 2.
a little bit of time, would you take a moment and introduce him, please?
Yes, Louisiana Supreme Court Justice Scott Crichton, former prosecutor in Caddo, a former district court judge, and now serving on the state Supreme Court. Good morning to you, Scott.
Good morning, Aaron. Thank you. I'm thrilled to be on your program.
I hope it's okay to call you
let us
Scott. I should have said
start-
judge.
Oh, absolutely. Look, unless we're in the courtroom and we're in session, please
Yeah.
call me Scott. I don't worry about all justice and your honor and all that
Gotcha.
business.
So unless I have on heels, I can call you Scott.
Wow. Mr. Scott, let us
Man.
start with the soon-to-be enacted, soon-to-be implemented Justice Reinvestment Act. We've talked to a lot of different folks in public office about this bill, and we're getting a lot of different opinions. What do you think? What are your thoughts?
Well, I think in order to really understand it, we have to understand the background and the history of where we are in terms of incarceration in the state and where we've been. Keep in mind also, and I know, Aaron, you know this. I think you were a little bit older than age 2 when we first met.
Right.
But my whole approach during my professional life, and really this is part of my DNA and philosophy, is very conservative. And on law and order matters, I am strictly just that. I have a history, 10 years as a prosecutor, as you say, and 24 years as a judge, being tough on crime, especially violent crime. However, the facts are that, we are Louisiana. We are at number 1 in the country in mass incarceration on a per capita basis. That's double the national standard. And I've actually talked about that a good bit in some of my education programs I did in high schools for so many years in Shreveport. And we have in this state upwards of 35,000 inmates. I think it's really closer to 36,000. And somehow, some way, it costs, and I'm not sure why this is, but it seems to cost somewhere between $15,000 and $20,000 per inmate per year to warehouse these people. And that's a staggering number. It seems to me that if you're in prison doing hard labor, you ought to be out doing hard labor. I mean, like really working, picking up litter on the road and that sort of thing, but that's apparently not the case.
Excuse me,
In
Mr.
any
Scott,
event,
pardon me just a second. This is a question that I have asked a variety of people and about this bill. And I've said, is the problem with Louisiana, is it that we have too much crime or we're putting too many people in jail? And you, like a lot of others, you seem to be saying that.
The latter.
Go ahead, explain that to me.
Sure, Robert. Here's my view. I strongly believe that the people of Louisiana are no less. I mean, they're good people. We know them. They're good people. The vast majority are good people. We cannot look at this and say we are more evil or more bad in the state of Louisiana than any other country. That's just, to me, that's just not common sense. I think that we have tough on crime judges. I've been one of them, but I think we have to be smart on crime, and we need to differentiate those that are nonviolent from those that are violent. Those that are violent and those that have a history of violence, they need to go away forever, as far as I'm concerned. On those that have the one rock of cocaine, I think they need to be, if they did it, they need to be convicted. They need to have a little bit of jail time and some rehabilitation. I think we need to be selective in who we are putting away for long periods of time. And really, there was a poll done which led into this legislative package. There's a poll done in early part of 2017 by, I believe, the Melman Group, and it was a survey. And this is what led into this legislation. Of course, it's been talked about for a while, and this was commissioned. But a super majority of Louisiana voters, 63%, 65%, 68%. Super majority is like anything generally upwards of 60%.
You still there?
On a number of points was that we need to reduce the penalties for some of the lower level crimes, the nonviolent crimes. We need to lower the level for drug offenses. Now, distributing large amounts of illegal drugs, that person needs to go away. But basically, the theory and the trend has been among the people, the people that were interviewed, and according to this poll, is we should reduce the use of prison for nonviolent offenders while expanding the supervised probation and rehabilitative programs and job training before they get out.
Scott, let me ask you this. A lot of people are critical of the governor, saying this is just the governor's way of grabbing the cash from the corrections department and diverting it. This is all the governor's plan?
I think the governor, is one of his initiatives. There's no question about it. But here is my understanding of this reinvestment in terms of the money business. And again, I believe in just like our excellent Sheriff Prater, we believe in being careful with the citizens' money. In fact, I think Steve had a motto on one of his campaigns: is tough on crime, careful with your money. Well, I like to think that I do the same thing in my role as a judge, but the money is supposed to be and is legislatively required to be reinvested in some of these types of programs that are designed to job training, rehabilitation for drug use, rehabilitation for anger management, those sorts of things. And I wrote down the amount of money somewhere, but it's the problem with the Senate Bill 139, which has been talked about on Kill Radio a couple of times now, a few times, is that we don't have the money yet generated from the savings to get these programs initiated yet, and that leads to the issue of this release of some of these offenders, 1,500 offenders, on November 1. That the theory is that although Secretary LeBlanc of the Department of Corrections says that they are all nonviolent offenders, that's at least what he told KTBS on Friday.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not so sure about all that, but that's it. This whole package is supposed to be for the nonviolent.
Another segment with Louisiana Supreme Court Justice Scott Crichton. Mr. Scott, you mentioned in the last segment as we were wrapping up Caddo Parish Sheriff Steve Prater. And Sheriff Steve has, in fact, been more than a little critical of this justice reinvestment, the judicial reform legislation. And not only is it like he is concerned about programs for the released that remain unfunded, but also that a lot of violent offenders are falling through the cracks. Comment on those two, if you would.
Well, I share the concern of Sheriff Steve Prater. One thing about our sheriff is that, I think he's the best ever, and he has a passion for what he does, and he is the top law enforcement officer of Caddo Parish, and we are lucky and blessed to have him. I share his concern about the release, at least of some of the group that's coming before it's about to be released on November 1. But and not all parts of the package I agree with. There are some parts, and there are 10 bills that emanate from this Louisiana Justice Reinvestment Package. I personally don't agree with some of those. And I know he doesn't either. I've heard him speak about Senate Bill 139 quite a bit. And let me go back just a little bit, Robert, on two things, because during the break I found my note on this. Yes, this was an initiative by John Bell Edwards, no doubt about it, but it was also something that received bipartisan support in the legislature. In fact, a majority of, 6 Republicans, including John Alario, who's president of the Senate, 2 Democrats, and then 1 independent, were the leaders on authoring most of this package. and it was sponsored by them, supported by the LDAA in great part. LDAA did not, Louisiana District Attorney Association did not agree on all of it, but they worked with the legislature in bringing all this about. And Lobby was in great part in support of it. So these are all conservative entities. And of course, President Lario, President of the Senate, he's Republican and has served in the legislature a long time. Not all of it. I do think it was a voluminous package of bills. I've read it. I had to sit down for about 2 days and read all of them and think about all of them. I don't agree with all of them.
What programs will it bring to the table, and which ones are most needed?
Well, let me tell you on the front end, and this is not talked about in the law, but this is something I believe in 100%. I really do believe that we need to have some program in every high school that teaches kids, high school kids, about the perils of violating the law, hanging with the wrong crowd. You know, some of the laws that can be violated that they may not know about. For example, somebody serves as a lookout for another person that's committing a burglary. They're a principal. They committed burglary too, just like the guy that went in. And the same is true of an armed robber. If you're helping out an armed robber commit that crime, you're a principal to it, and you can be found guilty of armed robbery. If there's dope in the car and there are 4 guys in the car, all of them will be deemed to be in possession of it. That's what the law is. And there's a lot of laws that they may not know, and it's nothing complicated about it, but they need to understand about consequences, how it will affect their lives if they're arrested with respect to going to college or getting a job, having a record, and an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. That's on the front end, and I did quite a bit of that during my last 7 or 8 years on the district court. I was quite passionate about this concept of education, prevention through education. And, some people, I think I reached some, I think I probably didn't, but I did my best.
But in this particular case, do we not have the cart before the horse in that we're letting people out November 1?
I think we do. I think you're exactly correct with respect to that first group of people coming out. And this is what Senate Bill 139. That's what we're talking about. The law before this Justice Reinvestment Package said basically that good time release would be granted at 40% of the sentence. So if they had a good disciplinary record and they're good with their good time credits, they would be eligible for good time release onto parole supervision, not just completely wild and free, but onto parole supervision at 40% of their sentence. The Senate Bill 139, the new law, says that good time release is granted at 35% of the sentence. So some of these people that are getting out November 1 would have gotten out anyway in January of 2018, perhaps, or February, depending on the length of the sentence. It's all a question of percentage and math and all of that. But these are supposed to be nonviolent offenses. Now, here's the problem with Senate Bill 139, in my view. It's retroactive. The legislature deemed it to be retroactive. My thought is it should have been, if it's to be done, it should be an effective date of, say, July 1 of 2018,
right,
or someplace in the future, so that some programs can be put in place. And you asked about that. I don't really know a lot of what the DOC plans or what the legislature plans for the DOC to do. But obviously, it seems to me there needs to be reentry training where they need to the prisoners need to change their mindset about their behavior, and sometimes that's hard to do because you're changing very old habits. They need to be taught some level of manners. They need to be taught how to interview. They need to be taught some job skills. Everybody's good at something.
Scott,
everybody's good at something.
Up against our clock. Can I get you to come in studio next time you're in town? Because I got a lot of questions about the death penalty.
Well, I've got a lot of answers.
Okay. Will you come in studio and join us next time you're in town?
Yes, I will, and thank you for the invitation. That's the law, and I'm sworn to oppose the law, and I believe in the death penalty law.
Thank you.
And I have a lot to say about it, so thank you.
Thank you,
Yes.
Judge. We appreciate your time.